Okay, so here we are. We're on out of classwork 7. This is Wednesday, so we're going to start with our first problem, which is a simple percent problem where, excuse me for the, there we go, autofocus back. We're going to do is over of equals percent over 100. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to write out my lines. I'm going to insert my values. My 100 always stays in the same spot. What is 20%? So yes, there's an is here, but the percent lets me know that's a percent, so it needs to go in this space on the formula. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a 20 here. And then of 68. Of 68 needs to go in the of spot. 68 is here. And then my mystery value is gonna get an X. That's what I'm trying to find the value of. So I'm gonna go ahead and cross multiply. 100 times X is 100X. And here's the big mistake I see a lot of students making is you need to remember to drop down the equal sign. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply 68 times 20. Let's do a little side math over here. I know a little trick that if I have anything that ends in a 0, I can actually remove the 0, multiply out. 8 times 2 is 16. Bring up my 136, and then I can add my 0 back. So now I need to add 1360. Okay, and if this little trick with the removing and adding the 0 back was confusing to you, let's sit down and talk about that, because that certainly does help make math much easier and makes it go quicker as well. So I need to separate 100 and X. This means multiply. The inverse of multiply is to divide, so I'm going to divide by 100 on the left. If I divide by 100 on the left, I'm going to divide by 100 on the right. My value for X is going to be 13.6, and if you have a 0 here, that's fine. The 0 really doesn't have add any value or add any numerical change to the number, so I'm just going to remove it off. Next problem, Jamal ran 50 meters in 40.8 seconds, and Martina ran 100 meters in 60.2 seconds. Who ran the fastest? So these are 2 unit rate problems, and I'm doing a comparison. So I have Jamal here, and we'll do Martina over here on this side. Jamal runs 50 meters in 40 seconds, or excuse me, 40.8 seconds. Martina runs 100 meters in 60.2. Now, when I find the unit rate, that's going to tell me who actually ran faster. So in order to do this, I have to divide. And I have to be careful there because that looks like a 5, but it's really seconds. 50 is on top, so 50 is going to go on the inside of the house, because remember, whatever's on top goes inside the house. So I'm dividing 40.8 into 50. I'm going to move my decimal 1 time. There is no decimal here, so it's inferred that it's at the end. So I'm going to move this over for 1 time, and I have to add a 0. So now I have 408 into 500. That will go 1 time. 1 times 408 is 408. I'm going to subtract out. It's going to give me a value of 92. I'm going to add another 0, drop that down. 408 goes into 920 twice, 16 and 8. So I'm actually going to stop right there, because I'm going to see if I have enough information right here that I can solve the problem without having to get a whole lot of decimals. So I'm now going to divide the 100 by 60.2. Same thing that I did before. I have to move the decimal to create a 602. Move the decimal. Don't have any number here, so I'm going to add the 0. This goes in 1 time. Okay. I'm going to subtract out, which is going to leave me a value of 398. I'm going to add my decimal. Drop down. Okay, 602 goes into 3,980. I'm not exactly sure the time. I actually can just look at it and know that it's going to go more than 2 times, so that my Martina rate is going to be faster. So I know that without actually solving through, but just to make sure that I'm being thorough, I'm actually going to just give the number here. So 602, let's do times 6. Okay, see if that one works out. Okay, that looks probably about as close as I can possibly get. So Martina is at 1.6. Martina is the fastest. Okay, and again, I could have made those decimals longer, but it doesn't really add or change my answer. So I'm just going to keep it moving. Next problem 3 is just a 2 equivalent fractions where I'm missing the value of t. Cross multiply. 2.5 times t is 2.5t. Got to remember to keep my equal. If you start dropping off the equals, that's when you become confused and start turning these equations into expressions. 20 times 6 is 120. I need to separate 2.5 and t, so I'm going to do that by dividing, which is the opposite of this multiplying. These two cancel out, it creates 1t. I'm going to divide 120 by 2.5. And again, I'm going to need to do that math over here. 120 goes inside the house because it's on top. Over 1, over 1. 25 goes into, can't go into 12. 25 goes into 120 4 times. 25 goes into 208 times, so the answer to t is 48. Okay, last problem, and I'm getting an awful lot of folks that are confused with this. These are called complex fractions. So Olivia reads, and I already wrote on top of it here, 28 and 1/2 pages of a book in 1 1/6 of an hour. How many pages can she read in an hour? So I'm trying to find a unit rate here. I'm trying to find how many pages in an hour. So all I need to do is fill in my values. 28 and 1/2 pages in 1 1/6. I'm going to take this from vertical to horizontal. 28 and 1/2 divided by 1 1/6. This looks something that looks a little bit more like something that I can know how to answer. So I'm going to use reverse C. This is going to give me a value of 57 over 2. I'm going to keep my divide. This is going to give me a value of 7 over 6. I have to remember to use keep, change, flip now that I have them in improper fraction form. I'm going to keep my first fraction, change my sign, flip my second fraction. Now, I could just multiply across and then simplify, but I can see that I have a common factor between 6 and 2. 57 and 7 don't have a common factor, but 2 and 6 do. And that common factor is 2. 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now I just multiply across. 57 times 3 is 171 over 1 times 7 is 7. And we're just going to leave it in that format. You're welcome to put it into decimal or mixed number, but I'm just going to leave it like that because it's perfectly fine.